what happens is the more money you make, the less black people you see. And it's divide and conquer, you know? At a certain point, they sit you down.
20 years after Marlon and Shawn Wayans produced one of the greatest sitcoms in Hollywood history, some cast members have come out to spill behind-the-scenes secrets, and these juicy leaks will leave you stunned. The secrets ranged from reboot rumors to family feuds, spanning topics like role designations and even costume designs. But the kicker is, some would rather guard their silence. Just how insane are these leaks? What exactly could be that big to force another former cast into silence? Join us as we discuss the Wayans Bros, exhuming 20-year-old secrets buried behind the scenes. The double threat Wayans. The mid-90s served up some serious sitcoms that had grown men in stitches, and the Wayans Bros was right at the top of the pile. The Wayans brothers, Shawn and Marlon, who were just busting into the Hollywood comedy scene, had been on some lips in the industry, which saw them as the next best thing to come straight out of New York and just needed that extra step to put them right in everyone's face and make them unavoidable.
I can't see how this day could get any worse. Hey, I just thought of something. How we gonna get home from Cleveland?
So, in 1995, they came up with the Wayans Bros, and they had everyone in a chokehold. The themes were absolutely relatable, as they cut across what a 90s black family looked like, their attitude towards the hustle, and just unbridled laughter. Although the show was successful and probably set the tone for the new school black kid series like Everybody Hates Chris, which premiered in 2005, it didn't last too long. The series lasted only 4 years, but as expected, it drove many devoted fans nuts. But here comes the kicker. There was no serious explanation in the air as to why the show ended, and it most definitely looked like there were way more stories to tell than they showed. Hence, that piqued the curiosity of most fans, leading to questions that no one really had the answers to. At least that is what everyone thought, until 2 decades later. The show had some serious changes lurking behind the scenes, including alterations to the scripts, changes in roles, and moving some physical settings, like the location of the Wayans family dinner, from Harlem to the fictional Niedermeyer building in Rockefeller Center, Manhattan. Although the show ran for the better part of 4 years with seriously incredible plot structure, there are details that even the most devoted fans missed, changes that didn't seem too obvious, or cast members whose roles suddenly ended with no real reason stated.
Voulez-vous coucher avec moi ce soir?
However, old cast members like Anna Maria Horsford, the famous Dee Baxter, who played the on-again, off-again girlfriend to Pops, father to the fictional Williams brothers, Shawn Wayans and Marlon Wayans, remembered too much to keep to themselves forever. So the Wayans brothers and some of the old cast of this incredible show started divulging juicy stories that fans absolutely missed while the show was on. Just how many stories did they have to tell? Witherspoon almost lost Pops. Marlon and Shawn created the Wayans Brothers show to be downright menacing and unfiltered. They wanted to bring the ghetto to the silver screen and have everyone see what it looked like in the daily life of an average black child living in Harlem with a family who are only just keeping their heads above the water. And that's exactly what they achieved with Pops, an African-American family man who raised all of his kids and committed them to the hustle and bustle of what life really is from a rather young age. Any 90s kid who came from real struggle could tell what it meant to have to live like that and have a father who was just as imposing and hardworking as he was humorous.
Oh, come on, man!
He was the perfect description of a black dad, and no one expected anything less, especially since the character was created by 2 black American brothers. The character was loved by everyone who saw the show, with glowing reviews on Rotten Tomatoes and other websites where no one could get enough of the good old Pop, hence why it was almost too difficult to believe when Marlon Wayans dropped a bombshell about Pops. On Keke Palmer's podcast, Baby, It's Keke Palmer, Marlon Wayans was getting absolutely grilled about the Wayans Bros, which was no surprise to anyone. especially because the show has had such a huge influence over pop culture for many years. But this time, the questions went a little further, with Kiki banging on about John Witherspoon and his legendary role as Pops. She could not believe her ears when Marlon finally spilled the tea. John was almost ruled out of the show because NBC described his character as too ghetto. They were almost largely impressed with everything else and offered tweaks here and there, but the real nutcracker was having Pops changed or flatly removed if they couldn't somehow tone down the ghetto. They watched the table reading go on and heard John Witherspoon hitting the Harlem flavor on every syllable of the words he pronounced.
Took me to the bedroom, and you know me first thing in the morning. Bang, 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 bang!
It was a whole world of perfection for Shawn and Marlon, but for the creative producers and the other top brass at NBC, it sounded like the Harlem Renaissance all over again. So, they wanted a different black man, who embellished his articulations with more elegance and class. As a result, they suggested Danny Glover, a fantastic actor who played Mandela in the 1988 movie of the same name. But the Wayans wanted a bit more ghetto, so they shelved the project with NBC. But yet again, fate was in the works this time, puppeteering this little shindig, and moved the party all the way to Warner Brothers. Immediately, they caught whiff of the character. Pops, they loved it, and gave creative freedom to the Wayans brothers to simply do their thing. At this point, the lines between fate, timing, and opportunity collided, and John Witherspoon benefited massively. Chaos met destiny and folded like a house of cards. As soon as Marlon told that story, Kiki, just like the vast majority who could not have seen this show any other way without Pops in it, was surprised, nigh frozen on the spot. Not one person, except of course the NBC, could have imagined the show without Pops in it. While Witherspoon's near dismissal was a revelation, what else could fans have missed on the show that no one really spoke of? Wayans off the cuffs. Sometimes, even in a profession like acting, where expression is considered supreme, a bit of roboticism and automation creeps in, especially in scriptwriting and casting. However, the 90s saw a lot of relaxation of these rules, where scripts were suddenly flipped on their head and a whole new idea took center stage, and such was the story of the Wayans. Their on-screen chemistry did not come from a vacuum. It came from a place of trust and respect for each other's artistry and intellect. Hence, when they made the Wayans Bros, they flipped the scripts a million times over.
Shawn, it stinks!
Yeah, well, they can't smell it over the TV.
In search of perfection, which in their case was to keep the cultural thematic preoccupation intact while spicing it up with enough comic material rooted in the African-American humor paradigm. However, not many knew this. The episodes seemed rehearsed to perfection and fleshed out by some of the best actors and actresses in the world at the time. Although some of them are rehearsed, characters like Pops, Marlon Williams, and Shawn Williams notoriously saved many of their scenes by improvising, especially because they kept forgetting their lines. Marlon Wayans, especially, had always been the type to go off script. Hence, it was not always easy for him to work with producers who had a knack for automations. However, other producers who appreciated his ability to add a bit of that New York spice to the character's comic scripts gave him some room to let that creative juice flow. But the real question is, why was it so easy for the brothers to simply improvise on the spot when things were about to go south? The Wayans brothers were not always sitcom geniuses. They were a completely different monster back in the day, before the advent of the Wayans Bros. Already, they were rising rapidly as stand-up comedians, watching men like Ced the Entertainer and Steve Harvey leave everyone in stitches by just holding on to that microphone. Being a stand-up comedian meant that they had to perform at an open mic in pubs full of drunks, who could throw a bottle 50 feet across the room in a fit of rage just because they didn't find them funny. Hence, they learned to be more off the cuff with their material. If something wasn't working, they needed to do something else on the spot or risk getting thrown off the stage. Also, they ventured into sketch comedy.
Shawn, I'd like you to meet Maxwell Blair. I've been telling him about it.
Within living color, created by their older brother, Keen Ivory Wayans, in 1990. Their background basically set them up for life as the types of men to fabricate solutions to save situations that are mostly going south. But they weren't on their own. They also had the great John Witherspoon, who was the famed king of improvisation at the time. For some context, the famous "bang, bang, bang" line from his movie Boomerang was not scripted. It was all Witherspoon, and the creators of the movie ran with it. However, not many people knew that, even though it stared them in the face. Also, in one of the episodes, the Gaga Goo Goo scene, where Marlon was speaking romantically over the phone, was not scripted. He simply turned on the Wayans comedic gene, and he hit a home run right there. Although the improvisation was often missed, there was something else, something everyone enjoyed on the show but not many paid much attention to: the music. Maybe the jokes did write themselves. What exactly was the inspiration behind the chosen rhythms? Hip-hop and the Wayans. Many 90s kids grew up with sounds and rhythms from one of the most famous boroughs in New York, Harlem. Harlem has raised some of the biggest MCs to ever grace the mic, including Cameron, Keith Sweat, Big L, and Dougie Fresh. And they were a massive influence on pop culture, with slang and street codes inculcated into their music. The Wayans brothers were also born in New York. Hence, the music in these boroughs were a part of their reality. And they, sure as sunsets in the West, were going to have some of this slang and music become a part of the
This is really nice.
Oh, Lisa, come on. This ain't what it looks like.
Yeah, Lisa, you got it all wrong.
Wayans Bros project. The series already had its body built on superb storytelling and jokes, but its soul was the music, and it had to hit the times and the current theme being explored in an episode. The music was obvious to everyone. However, most fans missed their implications, which were just subtle enough to keep the show so influential in popular culture. For some context, the very first episode of the show began with one of the biggest songs by a huge New York hip-hop group at the time, Electric Relaxation by the Rising Group, A Tribe Called Quest. The brothers Marlon and Shawn
May I help you?
Yeah, who do I talk to about a refund policy?
reportedly handpicked the instrumental tracks for the song to be used as the intro for the show. However, they were not only going to bring hip-hop to the scenes by just playing that song as an intro. They were selling the African-American music and stars to the world through visual representation. Since they had the settings in Harlem, they had one of Harlem's sweethearts at the time, Keith Sweat, appearing on an episode of the show, fusing the hip-hop world with their comedy world. They were setting a different precedent that brought the best of black folks across all types of entertainment together in the same room. Soon, they had Busta Rhymes coming on the show, playing himself, and just having fun on set off the cuff. Soon after, they also designated an episode to bring in one of the best female MCs in the United States at the time, Missy Elliott, showing off the hip-hop and rap genre to be more gender diverse than most people think. And Missy's presence at such a huge show was another sign of respect for the females in hip-hop, creating a legacy that slithered into the new generation of big female stars, including Nicki Minaj and Cardi B, both of whom have discussed Missy Elliott as an inspiration. While the implications of hip-hop were missed by many fans who didn't dig deeper than the jokes, the Wayans brothers also ensured they had full control over how their project worked. Why were they so adamant? What really went on behind the scenes? The Wayans stand their ground. The Wayans family had been on television almost their entire lives, doing their thing as comedians or just entertainers. It's almost like watching the black version of the Harrison family, who produced 2 different American presidents. It's just ever the same with the Wayans, a family with a passion for entertainment. While the Wayans Bros was successful, Marlon and Shawn were rather careful and completely invested in how the show was run. They had been bitten once, and they were not going to let it happen again. Although many saw the show as just rainbows and unicorns, there was so much more to it. It was a revolution born of painful lessons, especially when they were still working with Fox, the media channel that produced Keenen Wayans in Living Color. The show was primarily aimed at promoting the interests of people of color living in the United States, especially during the 90s. Although it wasn't KKKK or Jim Crow America, color still seemed to mark social territories. Hence, Keenen came up with In Living Color, a show that was predominantly comprised of African Americans, as opposed to the other popular comedy sketch at the time, Saturday Night Live, or SNL, whose casts were, at the time, mostly white. Having found success with the sketch, Fox took the initiative to syndicate the show, meaning they would sell rights to other television stations, allowing them to air the comedy sketch on their own networks. While it was the perfect idea, which takes the show even further than the Wayans imagined, Fox got greedy. They made way more money by redistributing the show across numerous networks and cutting out Keenen Wayans from the profits. The show was already taking on a whole new shape, with big stars like Jim Carrey, Jamie Foxx, and Tommy Davidson already finding their feet in the entertainment business. But the injustice to one Wayans was an injustice to all, and the consequences would be dire. According to Marlon Wayans, they all wore dark sunglasses on December 20th, 1992, during the Driving Miss Shot Christmas episode, as a silent protest against the network's treatment of Keenen. The network could tell the Wayans were mad about the treatment of Keenen, and they left the show in 1993, ending a groundbreaking series. Since the occurrence, Shawn and Marlon decided never to get reeled in and turned over like fish doped out of water next time they worked with a network, which is why they fought for control of the Wayans Bros before they even got to filming. Having fought the good fight to keep control of the franchise, could there really be some substance to the rumors of a reboot? The Wayans legacy. Although the curtains fell on the show in 1999, its relevance to pop culture over the years, and even today, cannot be understated. The Wayans knew too well just how much they had influenced pop culture, not only with their work on the Wayans Bros, but in other serious movies over the years, including scary movies. While their legacy is built and their reputation cannot be undermined by anyone who wants to be taken seriously in Hollywood, the Wayans brothers franchise just feels like an unfinished project as fans continue to ask for more. Although the show was canceled by the Warner Brothers network in 1999, which had a Chicago-based national cable superstation, WGN, airing reruns until 2002, the Wayans wanted to keep their work alive, making sure it reached the right audience for a long time. By 2006, BET started reruns of the show until 2007, and just like that, the show had gone beyond the age groups it was intended for. The Wayans legacy, which seemed like a finished article especially because of this show, suddenly had a hungry new generation who wanted more. While the brothers considered a reboot, Marlon revealed that they just never really had the time to go for it. They were either busy with a new project on the horizon or just too unwilling. However, as much as they paid little to no attention to the Wayans Bros reboot ever coming back, the Wayans family agreed to bring back another one of its biggest franchises, Scary Movie. While the Scary Movie franchise rang bells of nostalgia everywhere in the world and triggered a pop culture reset, the insatiable thirst to see the Wayans Bros series in action once more seemed to have come to stay. Having finally gotten around to releasing a new Scary Movie sequel, other cast members from the Wayans Bros have suddenly been on more podcasts recently, talking about behind-the-scenes secrets. While some fans have accepted this as a possibility of a reboot coming to life, the Wayans brothers have shown no readiness to continue. While their legacy will always trigger a nostalgia for more of the Wayans Bros, only time will tell whether that Harlem-born humor, infused with modern-day beats, makes that comeback to Hollywood. Do you think the Wayans brothers could ever reboot the series? Now that cast members are beginning to loosen their lips on behind-the-scenes secrets, could even juicier stories hit the surface soon? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.